in existence, the evolver of all systems of knowledge. We're thankful to Allah Highly Glorified as He for once again allowing us to unite for this blessed day of Yamul Jumu'ah. Yamul Jumu'ah, the day of assembly, the day that the Muslims unite all over the world at one specific time to worship Him in a specific way, facing Qibla, our direction is towards the Kaaba. We know that this is a sacred month. Allah talks about the sacred month in the Quran, and He tells us about the very benefit of Hajj, Dhul Hajj, the season of Hajj, the month of Hajj, and it's a very, very sacred month, and it's a blessed month. In fact, and for those who may have the will to do, it is highly encouraged that you fast tomorrow. It's highly encouraged. If you understand the benefits of the fast during the Hajj, oh, what a great blessing, because as you look at the Hajj itself, Prophet Muhammad said, whoever intends to perform Hajj for the sake of Allah, not to do any wrong, without having any obscene language, it's like coming forth out of his mother's womb, or her mother's womb. Saying that Hajj is new birth. And then for those who are not performing Hajj, if they fast, here's the blessings of Allah, highly glorified as He. If they fast during this month, the day of Arafat, if they fast, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that it expediates, it wipes out sins for this year and the coming year. That's a blessing. Now Allah says for those who perform the Hajj without intending to do any wrong, that's why it says for those who intend to perform Hajj for the sake of Allah. See, because some people perform Hajj for different reasons. They perform Hajj because their friend did it last year. It'll become the in thing to do without the right spirit. That's why Prophet Muhammad said, whoever intends to perform Hajj for the sake of Allah, not for any other reason, with no obscenity, without a desire to do any wrong, it's like coming forth out of his mother's womb. That's for those who are performing Hajj. But for those who are not performing Hajj, and they're fasting in this season, Prophet Muhammad says it wipes out the sins of now, this year, and the year coming. Oh, that's a blessing. You see how merciful Allah is? So this is a special time. That's why Eid al-Adha is so important. It's the bigger Eid. It's the victory over yourself. And Prophet Muhammad said that your greatest struggle is the Hajj. When you really, really understand what the Hajj is, it is the time that man begins to really realize what it means to be a human being. That's why Allah says that Hajj is an obligation man, a duty man owes to him. When you perform Hajj to the sacred house, Kaaba, which means to join and combine, and it represents the symbol that unifies the human being. So he said that it is a duty that man owes to Allah. That this is when you begin to really recognize the oneness of Allah and the oneness of His creation. Because now you're looking at the human being as a sacred being, not as a status being. Not judging whether he's in the lower class or the upper class. You're dealing with the human being. So Hajj itself is the greatest sociological lesson the world could ever see. When you look at sociology in terms of studying how human beings engage and interact with one another to solve social problems, Hajj is the greatest lesson that the world needs to take notice of. Because why? You're dealing with the human being who realizes that he's a human being. You're not dealing with the human being based on what he has and what he doesn't have. That human being is saying, I'm willing to sacrifice and inconvenience myself to struggle towards the oneness of Allah. And when I begin to struggle towards connecting with Allah, then I become closer in my pursuit of connecting with His creation. That's why Muhammad the Prophet in Minna said that this was a sacred month. A sacred day, and talked about the sacredness of the human being. That's why there's so many problems in the world, because they've lost the idea of the sacredness of the human being. There's no reverence for human life. And until man get back to the ideal of having reverence for the great worth and value Allah placed inside that human being, you will continue to see pain, suffering, tragedy all over the world. That's why Hajj itself is the greatest lesson in sociology as to how human beings should engage with one another. See, Linaz, he said it's for the social being, Nas, the human being who understand Allah, put in their body an urge to connect with other human beings. So Allah says, Khalaqul Insan. In fact, he says, Khalaqul Insan min nafsin wahid, that he created the human being, but then he said he created the human being min nafsin wahid from one soul. So there's a soul-to-soul connection. There's a spiritual connection. That's why when you perform the Hajj, you got to be ready, because this requires great discipline. See, and the whole idea of the Hajj is not just going, but what happens when you come back. Because, see, you don't impact the Hajj, but it impacts you. But the intent must be right. That's why he said, whoever perform Hajj for the sake of Allah, not for your sake, not for the sake of your friends, that it's a popular thing to do, but they utter no obscene speech and it does no evil deed, will go back free of sin as he has just come from his mother who gave birth to him. That's new life. That's a rebirth. So Allah has given us a new start if we perform this great tradition with the right spirit. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Buni al-Islam, and it comes that al-Islam is built on 5 essentials, 5 principles. And Hajj is not the first, it's the last. That means you've been engaged in doing some soul work. You've been working on your soul. You've been getting your spirit right. Because you want to be a better human being with the perception that I am Abdullah. And Abdullah is the highest position you can take in the world. Abdullah means I'm a slave servant of Allah. With or without anything. That's why the greatest question of all the philosophers were, who are you? And most people have not come to an understanding of who they are. How do you identify yourself? How do you perceive yourself? But the highest position you can ever take is Abdullah. So you ask yourself, who are you? Then you have to ask yourself, who was I? How have my life been transformed? Where did I come from? What is my past? What is my history? Because that is what shaped me into be the person I am today. And as you move on this journey called life, the next question is, who am I becoming? See, whatever you're engaged in, you're becoming somebody. Whatever your conversation is, that conversation is shaping you. That's why Allah says in the Quran that you avoid vain and empty conversation. Because that vain and empty conversation is going to shape you. You should be engaged in conversation that's going to help you to grow and evolve to be a much more dignified human being. So So the question is, who am I? Then you ask yourself, who was I? See, sometimes people are not able to overcome because they never looked at what happened that brought them to where they are. That's why if you have any psychological, medical, social problem, you're talking to the doctor, you're talking to the lawyer, you have an experience, they always take you back to, tell me what happened that day. Because we study the past to be aware of the present so we can move to work towards making a better future. So they take you back. Who was I? And then I can see how I've overcome some things, because that's what Hajj is all about. Hajj is about overcoming. So Allah said, this is a duty. Because in fulfilling this duty, Allah going to show you who you are. A good friend of mine said, see, when you make Hajj, like Allah give you a mirror to look at yourself. Because there's no escapism. So you deal with everyday living. You got problems, you can escape, go to the movies, go to the show, go shopping. You got all these distractions. But when you're on that journey called Hajj, it's between you and Allah. You have the support from those who are there, but it's an internal experience. That's why Allah says He created everything and He gave it a destiny. It has a starting point and an ending point, and we begin at Kaaba, which represents the manifestation of the unification of humanity. It is the base where the human family congregates. And the Kaaba itself has no mystical power. I've seen people fall in love and get overwhelmed from seeing the Kaaba. In fact, so much attached to a physical structure, the police have to beat them off the building. So Allah says, in regards to that, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبُّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. Therefore, serve not the house. So we get attached to things, but serve the evolver of the house. And He connects Rabb to the Bait. He connects the Rabb, the evolver, to the house, because at that house is where man is evolved above all those isms that separate man. It is there at Kaaba when he put on the Ikram and goes into this sacred state. It is there that he evolves above classism, sexism, racism, and all those isms that allow man to be disconnected. That's why when you put on the Ikram, you go into a sacred state. That's what Ikram means. Ikram means sacred, forbidden. And then you move, when you put on the Ikram, you go to the Haram, which is the Masjid that contains Kaaba. And it is there that you begin your circulation around the foundation, around the house that Ibrahim and his son Ismail erected. So that the Kaaba, that this human being realized, I'm a servant of Allah, and I love Allah, and I love His creation. And when you come into an awareness of your power as a human being, you begin to do battle with those things that interfere with you connecting with another human being. That's why He says this Hajj, this experience, is an obligation that man owes to Allah. Because it's that experience that's going to impact your life in a profound way. So He says, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, and therefore serve the evolver of the house. What is Rabb? Imam Muhammad teaches that Rabb, when you hear the same word for Rabbil Alameen, the same word that you recite in Al-Fatiha, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. See, the first way Allah introduced Himself to the world, He introduced Himself to the world not as Allah, but He introduced Himself to the world as Rabb. He creates and then He allows that creation to graduate. Rabb. He said Rabb carries with it the meaning of care and concern that is given to something in its weak state to mature it to a state of strength so it is strong enough to live out the function, plan, and design for it. See, Allah just doesn't create us, but He's evolving us. He's allowing us to graduate intellectually, spiritually, morally, financially. It's all about growth and development. He's the one that has taken us up. So when you go to Kaaba, it is there that man realizes, I must graduate above all those things that interfere with human progress. That's when you get in touch with yourself. When you put on that ikram, you begin to drop the mask. You know how many people walk around with masks every day? And you never get in touch with that human being because that human being is hiding behind something. So when you put the ikram on, you're saying to the world that I'm open, I'm releasing who I am. I'm not hiding behind anything. And the clothes I wear, these clothes don't make a fashion statement. You got people caught up making fashion statements. That everything is about name. And if you don't have the stuff that has a name, then it minimizes your worth. You gotta have Michael Kors, you gotta have Fendi, you gotta have Gucci. And if you're not wearing these name brands of people, you don't even know the history, they disqualify you. Your worth is based on you wearing someone else's name that gives a fashion statement rather than a social statement of dignity and respect. See, this is the greatest lesson on how you deal with a human being. Because everybody walking around with their invisible measuring stick. And they got all these things that they measure the worth of a human being by. And then those human beings get those things, thinking that those things are going to make them feel good and give them some social status. That's why the Bible asks the question, and what would profit a man if he gained the world but lost his soul? He got to do some soul work. That's why Allah says in the Quran, He said that mutual rivalry for power of the good things of this world diverts you from the more serious things until you visit the graves. That's when people are going to find out none of that meant anything. Said mutual rivalry of piling up. See, people piling things up. But they have not yet went inward and worked on their soul. That's what Hajj is all about. It's about the push of your soul. That's why Prophet Muhammad said that the best jihad, the best struggle was Hajj, the best jihad. Your starting point is Kaaba, and you're journeying, you're pushing to make it to Arafat, which represents this big platform where all the human beings who made that journey reside at that one particular, and all of those of you who may hide, you understand. There's a push. And in life, some people give up. Even on hard, some people go on the Arafat, I just can't do it. Some of them get claustrophobic. I can't handle the numbers of people. They want to bail out. No, your journey is Arafat because Muhammad the Prophet, he said, where there's no Arafat, there's no Hajj. And Arafat has everything with this interaction, getting to know people. That's the problem, a lack of knowledge of knowing people. Understanding what this human being is all about. Appreciating the worth and value Allah deposited within that human being when He created. So He said He created everything and He gave it a destiny. Hajj itself has a beginning point. It begins at the Kaaba. And then it's a journey out of the masjid. See, because the Haram is the masjid that contains the Kaaba. So you put on the ikram, you go into in your own being, you go into a natural, a sacred state, and I'm releasing all my distinction. You understand that? You're releasing, you're detaching from your distinction. So now you don't know who's who. All you know is, here's a human being. That He created the human being, right, from one soul. Soul to soul. I'm getting in touch with a human being. So you go into this sacred state as a human being. That's your worth. I don't even understand your language, but I understand there's some body language. I can feel your spirit as a human being. So you want to get in touch with the spirit of the human being. You're going inward, connecting with the soul of the human being. And that's what pushes you. So you go into the sacred state when you put on the ikram, this making your distinction with your national guard. You don't know the lawyer from the doctor, from the president, from the garbage man, from the social worker, from the barber, from the dentist. You don't know anybody. All you know is he is a dignified human being who's on the same journey I'm on. And that journey, the destiny, is to make it to Arafat. So we go into that sacred state, then we go into the sacred place, which is called Haram. And there's a lot of things that go on inside Haram. And one of the things that go on inside Haram is the circulation around the Kaaba, but then you go and you do the Sa'i, you go and you push through Safa and Marwa. It's a struggle. And Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the Quran, no, Allah says in the Quran that we follow Millat Ibrahim. And everything about this Hajj is about commemorating the struggle of Prophet Ibrahim, who Allah says him and his son raised the foundation of the Kaaba. He said that your greatest Hajj, your best jihad, your best struggle is for Allah is Hajj. And inside that experience is struggle. And the struggle between these two hills of Marwa and Safa is what Hagar had to do to find nourishment for her son. See, this is what a mother would do. The child is hungry. The mother says, I gotta get some nourishment for my child. And the mother leaves the child and go out into barren land, to and fro. Because I got to inconvenience myself to make sure my child is nourished. And that's what any sound mother would do. That's why the role of mother is so significant in Al-Islam. You know the hadith, when Prophet Muhammad was asked who should he give, the man, who should he give his attention to? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, your mother. And he said, then who's next? He said, your mother. And for the third time, he asked, who's next? He said, your mother. Then your father. That's the powerful role of mother, because a mother is going to make the sacrifice to make sure that the children get before she gets. So that's part of the journey. That's part of the struggle. That a mother said, I'm willing to inconvenience myself to make sure that my child gets the nourish they need to move forward with their life. So through Marwa and Safa, it's a constant movement of looking for something. That's why we call it Mother Earth. That the earth gives us so much, just like our mothers give us so much. There's an abundance of life that comes from the mother, just like the abundance of life that comes from the earth. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Assalamu alaikum. So, Hajj, struggle. And if you haven't, we encourage you to have that experience. It will impact your life in a profound way, but I see it to be the greatest sociological lesson for the world. You know, I love the quote, and I shared with you before, and I want to share it with you again because it's timely. But I remember, and I'm going to conclude in just a few minutes. And I remember hearing the word sacredness. But let me read this hadith of Muhammad the Prophet. I'm going to go back to the word I mentioned to you about sacredness. The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says, and it's very profound and it's very simple. Do not hate one another. And do not be jealous of one another. And do not boycott one another, and just be servants of Allah as brothers. And it is not lawful for a Muslim to sever relationships with his brother or sister for more than 3 days. And here's the point I want to emphasize. See, Prophet Muhammad said, do not hate one another. You know why that's so important? See, hate is a killer. Hate is a destroyer. It doesn't preserve anything. And when Prophet Muhammad said, you love one another, you know why love is so important? Because love is a preserver of life. All you have to do is look at what happened all this week. You saw what hate produces. Hate is a killer. Love is a lifter and a preserver of life. And Prophet Muhammad said, look here, don't hate each other and don't be jealous. See, don't get into a thing that you got a problem with what Allah bless somebody with. Jealousy is a blocker and destroyer of life. It's going to destroy your character and your morals and your principles. You start disliking people because what Allah allowed them to have when you have the same capacity to get or more. We have to grow to a level of appreciation. So Prophet Muhammad said in another hadith, asked the question, do you know what day this is? And the people responded, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred day. Do you know what city this is? They said, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred city. Do you know what month this is? They said, Prophet Muhammad, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred month. Then he said, surely Allah has made sacred to you your blood and your property and your honor. And this day of yours is a sacred month in this sacred city of yours. We're talking about Haram. See, we have to get into understanding the sacredness of life. I remember Imam Muhammad did a series of talks on sacred life connection. See, connecting with the sacredness of the human being. Where this human being is honored, revered as a valuable creature who Allah willed into existence to provide a value to the world. See, when Allah created you, He created you for purpose and reason. Therefore, your life has to be sacred. That's why I said this is the greatest sociological lesson for the world that you understand. When you connect with Allah, you begin to connect justifiably with His creation. I shared with you before about what Malcolm said. I want to share it to you again because, look, this idea, and I'm going to conclude, I want to hold you. Here's this verse we talked before about color. You know, because some people get into color don't matter and we should stop dealing with color. Color is a reality. We gave the verse where Allah says in 30:22, He said that He said amongst His signs is the variations in your color and your language. He says, and amongst His signs, He made all these different colors. And don't act like these colors, people don't judge people based on color in the world. Because they showed the little boys did all those killings. Some of them will walk away with the police. Police will walk away with it. Let it be you, African American, you might be dead. So that's what they did with Eric Garner. The man said, I can't believe it. All of them stood around and watched another man just choke him out, choke the life out of him. Because he saw color. He didn't see human being. That's why we say Hajj is the greatest lesson, greatest sociological lesson on how you deal with a human being. So color poses a major problem. They showed one guy, the African American, police caught him for stopped him for a traffic light violation, bust his whole face up, bust his eye socket up, showed the boy that killed 20 people, and the police just walking him. Come on, son. So he's just walking him to the car like this. But Allah says, and among his sign is a sign. That's why I love the quote I shared with you before. I hope I find it real fast. We're going to close where Malcolm started talking about color. He said, look, but I know the quote. He said that it was the belief in the oneness of God that removed the whiteness from their behavior, the whiteness from their attitude, and the whiteness from their thinking. See, he said it was the belief in the oneness of Allah that did that, not anything else. This the Caucasian he saw in Mecca. Quite different from the Caucasian he knew he was going to experience when we went back to Harlem. Two different people. He said because once they've been exposed to the belief in the oneness of Allah, that belief removed from them the whiteness from their thinking, the whiteness from their attitude, and the whiteness from their behavior. See, that's the problem. The whiteness from white folks thinking have not been removed because that whiteness is in its ideal of white supremacy. It's not his pigmentation. It's his thinking of being superior. That's why even 30 years ago, you saw an uncivilized man, an uncivilized being named Charles, and that they had indoctrinated in the American mind that he was the Lord of the jungle. You understand that? See, I grew up watching that. He didn't say he was just a man in the jungle. He said that Tarzan was the Lord, and when you thought of Lord, you saw someone who was superior to you, was the ruler over your life. So color is a major issue. But Hajj shows how the color game can be wiped out once we connect with the ultimate source of life. And when we connect properly with Allah, then you begin to connect with the human being because you realize that Allah said He created the human being, Khalaq on the son of nafs and white from one soul. And when you have a healthy regard for Allah, you must have a healthy regard for His creation. So if you're able, fast tomorrow, the rewards and the benefits of fasting at this time, in the last 10 days of the Hajj, Prophet Muhammad said it will wipe out the sins of this year, and it will wipe out the sins of the next year. Oh my goodness. That's a blessing right there. Because Allah said for the one who's engaged in the struggle, He said if they do it with the right spirit, it's like them coming out of the womb of their mother, rebirth. And for those who are here celebrating, doing the right thing, if you fast, the Prophet said it's going to wipe out your sins now in this year and the year to come. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر